I ended up fighting the simulated Neandra for the whole night. While the clashes were serviceable, I couldn't get over the feeling that the simulacrum could only perform as good as what was observed and experienced from my end. If a real fight to the death suddenly broke out between us, I was sure the genuine assassin would have more tricks to put me down, and that was even before involving weapons. Darn, there is so much to learn for real close combat. I felt the only way to really improve was to set up as many real practice duels as possible. The morning arrived not with the expected Cryptora's summon but a surprising commotion and an audience request. I opened the door to my lodging to a small crowd. Present was Malin, Wellmanor, Herlindire and Alasaya with an awkwardly tense atmosphere hanging above them. Malin especially looked somewhat distraught. "Good morning," I said to them, and they all bowed to return my greeting. Knowing something was up, I went straight to the point. "So, what brought you all here this early?" The group silently turned their attention to Malin. It seemed that they had agreed beforehand to let the preacher talk first. Malin looked hesitant for a second before quickly gaining her resolve to speak. "My lady, I apologize for bringing this matter to your direct attention. May I ask if it is true that you had directly requested Throne Agent Herlindire to disrupt my speech? When and where was that?" "Yesterday night in front of the monastery main gate." "So that was what last night's extra crowd was about." I glanced towards Herlindire and she nodded discreetly. I looked back at Malin and said, "I did request some precautionary actions to be taken at her discretion." The preacher's reaction was instant. She looked both shocked and appalled for a second before her intense emotion could be sensed swelling beneath a barely maintained facade. I sighed internally and held up a palm to Malin before she could explode. "Let me speak to Herlindire first. You will have your turn shortly." While interpersonal relationship management was never my forte, the long years of grinding at a corporation had at least armed me with enough basic knowledge on how to handle situations like this. I then looked to the throne agent. "Let's speak inside." Herlindire nodded and followed me through the door of my suite before I closed it. "First things first, the document you mentioned." "Oh, here." Herlindire passed over a piece of parchment. I read through what was basically an acknowledgement of my visitation of the site at a certain specific time and nodded. "What do I need to do?" "Please sign to acknowledge it," Herlindire said while taking out a fancy pen decorated with, of course, subtle skull motifs along its exquisite body. She even used her data slate as a makeshift writing board for me. I took the pen, teetered for a second before signing my name on the parchment. It went surprisingly smoothly as this was the first time I signed my, or SYRINE's name. While passing back the parchment, I looked at the autograph with fascination. This is not my handwriting. It was a signature of artful flourish that seemed to embody both elegance and power. The inscription flowed with deliberate grace, each stroke assured yet refined. Every letter followed a smooth trail in imperceptibly precise spacings. It was so far off from the clunky signature from my past life that there was no comparison between the two. "My lady, please place your thumb here." Herlindire flipped over her data slate to reveal an identical document in digital format. I placed my thumb on the designated spot, it blipped and the process was concluded. "So, what happened?" I asked. "I have the report right here for your perusal," Herlindire said as she quickly worked on her data slate before passing it over with both hands. Smart, I absorb information way faster with reading. Did she pick that up from Thaberus? I nodded, took the device, read the whole thing with a glance and understood the situation. It was a report citing what Malin had learned from her interviews with the sisters, to her intention to hold a live speech following the Ricine telecast on yesterday night. The report was quite extensive on what was mentioned during the interviews. I especially remembered the part where two cultists tried to ambush our flank but got picked off after being exposed by my ability. Fearing the preacher would spread such detailed information to the masses, Herlindire stopped the speech citing security concerns and a directive from me. Sure enough, disagreements ensued, prompting this early morning standoff. Tell me you looked further into her background, I said while passing back the data slate. Herlin Dyer nodded. We did, up to 5 generations back, of course they did, they are the bloody Inquisition. While I appreciated their thoroughness, going that far back seemed over heavy-handed for my taste. So, anything? As far as we can tell, she and her immediate family are spotless. My mind went spinning. In a way, Malin was as good as I could hope for as a representative of the church. Her background was now proven. As a person she was generally pleasant to be around and not overbearingly preachy with the religious stuff. Lastly, as shallow as it sounded, the fact that she was a decent-looking young lady was greatly appreciated by what residue was left of my male soul. It was time to put her through a real test. Thank you. Please ask Malin to come in. I will make a decision after talking with her. As you wish. Herlin Dyer nodded and left the room. Preacher Malin, Lady SYRINE will see you now. The words jolted Malin from her semi-trance state of daydreaming about the worst-case scenario. The preacher looked to the throne agent, hoping to find any hints on what awaited her, but found not a single clue. Silently Malin cursed as she recalled that most of the Inquisition's people were experts at hiding emotions and intentions. Gingerly the preacher opened the door to the private suite before stepping inside. After walking through a short passage she entered the living quarter and came upon an unexpected yet incredible sight. In the center of the dimly lit room sat the Holy Daughter, her white robe the only plain-looking spot in the fully decorated suite. She was motionless. That, together with her totally neutral expression and body posture, gave Malin the distinct impression that she was gazing at a statue of a seated goddess. Just as the preacher was starting to believe she was indeed looking at a statue, SYRINE shattered the illusion by gesturing to a chair just beside her. Please, take a seat. Malin hesitated for a moment at the notion of sitting so close to the Holy Daughter but eventually complied. While sitting down, she again tried to divine her own fortune before quickly giving up on the attempt. Compared to Herlin Dyer, who had been strenuous to read, SYRINE might as well be an unreadable wall. Just as Malin was musing over her own thoughts, SYRINE dropped a statement. I heard about your interviews with the Battle Sisters. Jolted to her senses, Malin nodded and replied. It was my duty to verify their claims, my lady. They mentioned an observed phenomenon that happened a few times during the battle at the Scholastica's inner yard, and many believed it was a blessing by being in close proximity to you. What do you make of it? I believe their claims warrant further investigations. Since we are on this topic, may I ask, do you know anything about what the sisters experienced? This battlefield clarity they mentioned. SYRINE did not reply, instead she just looked at Malin with her depthless eyes. At this very moment the morning sunlight had just managed to creep into the room, and as its soft rays spilled over the flawless features of the Holy Daughter, she practically glowed in the gloom. The preacher lost herself to the enchanting sight and just stared back. That hypnotizing spell was broken when SYRINE spoke again. Were you going to share the story with the pilgrims yesterday? Yes. What was the reason? As a preacher I am obligated to strengthen the faith of the masses. There are few better ways than to spread stories of his miracles in these troubled times. I see. There is this old saying, information is power. Guard it well. Malin completed the sentence on reflex. SYRINE nodded. Depending on how you share the stories, you might accidentally disclose details for the enemies to use against us. My lady, that's. Did you harbor any ill intention? Startled by the question and its implications, Malin staggered for a while before managing a reply. Of course not. I swear by the throne and the Emperor can be my witness. I meant no. Malin, calm down, SYRINE interrupted and reached out. Malin felt the touch and glanced down, puzzled by what she saw. At first, it seemed as though SYRINE's hand was trembling, but a moment later she realized it was her own hand that was shaking. Up until now, Malin hadn't realized just how deeply her position had come to mean to her. The thought of suddenly losing the privilege to work alongside an upcoming living saint had shaken her to the core. She had heard many stories like this before, powerful people using the slightest excuse to ditch unfavored advisors and servants. And now, it seemed like it was her turn to be dismissed. Just as tears were starting to well uncontrollably, SYRINE's next words surprised her. "I believe you." Maylin could not believe what she was hearing and simply responded with an utterance. "Huh? I said I believe you. For your information, other than the exposed cults, the Inquisition highly suspected there might be other insidious enemies from within. That is why extra precaution is needed." The statement reminded Maylin of the slapping incident and the subsequent arrest of 3 high-level clergy members. She went pale at that notion. "Start thinking about how to spread your words without compromising us. I suggest you work with Herlindire on this. Can you do that?" Maylin nodded eagerly. "Thank you. Speaking of which, there might be a sword training session for me later today. Would you like to observe?" Slack-jawed, Maylin could only continue nodding. Outside my suite again, I watched as Maylin left the hallway with the throne agent, feeling guilty about what had transpired. I had infringed upon Maylin's privacy in favor of security by reading her mind, a seemingly necessary move that went against my personal beliefs. The reading revealed Maylin to be a simple preacher. For a moment I just stood there, hoping this was not the start of some slippery slope on power abuse. Eventually I allowed myself a soft sigh before checking on the chronometer. No summons yet. It seemed like Cryptora was still not ready. I did not feel like pressing him. In fact, I was kind of afraid about finding out what was inside that vault and decided to just go on with my day. "Well, Mana, is my schedule going as planned?" The scholar nodded. A shooting refresher course in the morning, followed by jump pack lessons under direct supervision of Seraphim Superior Zafir. Finally, a lesson on sword usage is scheduled with Sister Superior Markila in the evening. Very well. Let Maylin observe the sword lesson. Contact her when the session is about to start. As you wish. My lady, there is this other, request from the top, Wellmana said sheepishly, and surprisingly even Alisaya seemed to grimace ever so slightly upon hearing those words. Yes? The Canonus and the other Palatines would like to observe you shooting. They were intrigued by yesterday's report. I blinked. No problem. I went back to my suite to put on my power armor. First I traded my white robe for a light grey form-fitting body glove from SYRINE's collection, then I put on the fibro muscle body glove on top of that before wearing the white livery, finishing off by snapping on the armor pieces. From start to finish, 4 minutes plus. I was literally getting better at such tasks by the day with my cheating attributes. Time to grab my hand phone and go. I looked to Solace and dropped a simple command. With me. Solace complied and fell in behind me. Fully armored with helmet in hand and followed by my servo skull, I stepped out of my suite. It felt like a nice going-to-work routine. Some time later I was abusing the shooting dummies again at the gun range, this time with the Canonus and all her Palatines as my spectators. Wearing my power armor this time, the experience was different. The size of my hands was slightly larger with the armored gauntlets, while my view of the world was subtly changed by the Sabbat pattern helmet. I adjusted quickly and repeated my feats from yesterday. I even got to do the akimbo bolters near the end, missing not once during the whole session while improving on my reload speed. With my inhuman abilities proven beyond any shadow of doubt, a secret sense of relief could be felt from the sisters as I poised to take my first practical jump pack lessons. Zafir Abeio, the highest-ranking Seraphim Superior of the Order, was summoned and officially given the task to train me in the art of jump pack usage. I had looked into Zafir's profile as it was stored within the library and now inside my head. She was an orphan the sororitas had picked up from a regional conflict 20 years ago and one of the rarer individuals with an African-resembling lineage. The dark-skinned lady oozed with a strong and very competent aura that must have been shaped by years of having one of the most demanding positions. However, Even the stoic Sophia appeared apprehensive upon receiving the command. With all due respect, the Seraphim Superior said carefully, "May I know about Lady SYRINE's current level of jump pack training?" Markila answered, "We have spent time at the wind tunnel, and I can vouch that Lady SYRINE has a foundation as solid as it can be. She deserves the best training, so that is where you come in. Your expertise on this is second to none in the whole order." Sophia did not immediately answer, and I could sense her agonizing over being responsible for my safety, as this was a high-risk activity for any human. Just as it was starting to get awkward, Canonis Diadonar spoke up. "Sister Sophia, your caution does you credit. I understand your concern. You are permitted to call off the training anytime should you feel Lady SYRINE is not ready." With that, Sophia finally agreed to take me under her wings, and I expressed my respect with a slight bow. "I will be in your care." The Seraphim Superior seemed slightly taken aback by my gesture but managed a response. "It will be my honor to tutor you, my lady. I just hope you are ready for its stringent demands." My special one-on-one training with Sophia happened just after lunchtime. With Wellmanor and Margus Balpragius acting as observers, plus a team of Sister Hospitallers on standby, I started my first practical jump packs lesson in a special training area situated just beside the Great Citadel. A functioning jump pack was brought over by the Margus himself and strapped to my back. "I have personally serviced and fine-tuned this unit for optimum performance," the Margus said with a hint of pride before helping me with the calibration of the neural interface. As we went through the process, Balpragius canted a short burst of binary to me. "My princess, I'm only performing this as a formality to conceal your abilities. Your unique physiology is already perfectly attuned for technological interfacing." I nodded discreetly and canted back via solace. "That's very convenient. Do you think I can directly interface with the command throne of a Titan God machine?" The Margus froze slightly before replying with confidence. "By the Omnissiah, I am sure you can." After everything was set up, I became artificially linked up with my jump pack and could control it with just my thought pulse. I remembered this technology was still in its infancy in my past life, where people could play simple video games by using just their mind. As with almost everything else, it took but a few moments before the controls became second nature to me. My seamless compatibility with the neural interface provided superb control. It felt like having a new body part which I could control at will. Ready to get busy, I designated Wellmanor as a secondary master for Solace so she could command the servo skull around while I train. What followed was a crash course about more basic knowledge, operational procedures and equipment familiarization, all of which I absorbed like a sponge. Despite seeing firsthand how quickly I learned the basics, Sophia was still quite skeptical and had me run through some hoops to properly gauge my abilities. Needless to say, I blazed through all her tests, and the sister's confidence in me steadily grew until she finally started teaching for real. Sophia was soon performing various advanced moves for me to replicate. Shadowing her steps, I found myself doing all sorts of maneuvers and incredible high jumps. At first the Seraphim Superior held back, but as I aced through everything, her moves steadily became increasingly more complex and difficult. While I was sure this would be daunting for any beginner, none proved to be a real challenge for a cheat like me. We raced through the area, jumped up to the top of a tall training structure, then glided down with controlled bursts. Following her lead, we flew between multiple obstacles before landing, only to repeat the process with increased speed, then flew between obstacles with narrower and narrower spacings. We repeated the runs until our jump packs were low on promethium and had to take a break for refueling. "That was incredible, my lady," Sophia praised after we both took off our helmets. "Thank you," I replied simply, not knowing what to add. "The next part is important," Sophia said. "Sorry to be blunt, but are you afraid of heights, my lady?" I was baffled by her question. In my past life I was deathly afraid of heights and could not stand watching those death-defying videos of people playing around at the edge of skyscrapers. But retrospectively, just now I was jumping up and down from tall buildings without experiencing anything resembling fear. Zafia took my silence as a resounding no and pointed to the slim tower behind us. Good, you have no idea how many promising candidates I have seen being held back by acrophobia. To conclude today's session, you are going to jump down from there. The tower was roughly 40 stories high. At the very top was a short platform that extended into mid-air. I had wondered what it was used for until now, seraphim base jumping. A while later I was going up the tower on one of the many open-air elevator platforms with Zafia. I marveled at the seemingly crude but rugged rows of conveyor-like platforms going down on the opposite end and imagined rows of seraphims going up during peak training hours. The ride to the top took some time, and while Zafia was silent, my passive mind reading sensed she was building up courage to speak. Not wanting to wait, I broke the ice. "Something on your mind, sister?" Startled, Zafia quickly bowed before starting to speak. "My lady, there is indeed an issue that I had been wondering about for some time now. With the utmost respect, might I humbly seek your indulgence to pose a question?" "What would you like to know?" "Are you a follower of the Holy Progenitor's Covenant or a believer of their creed?" I was stumped. A brief reflection upon information about this covenant from the books deep inside my mind revealed it to be a group of near-heretical offshoots among the countless imperial cults. The covenant's followers were consumed by the baseless but speculated theory that the Emperor was the progenitor of all humanity, fervently embracing the belief in a divine lineage that bound every human to him as their literal forefather. Senior-ranking members of this creed at times openly referred to the Emperor as my father, earning them endless troubles with the Church. Why would Zafia ask such a question? Wait, she was there. In a heartbeat, my superhuman mind had logically pinpointed the origin of her inquiry. It must be that time when I had indirectly referred to the Emperor as my father to persuade that stubborn rebel general to peacefully switch sides. Are you referring to my conversation with General Borin? Is this a question of faith?" I asked. Zafia reacted with a hint of trepidation. Her head remained low as she replied, "I meant no disrespect, my lady. I could not figure out why you would refer to the Emperor directly as your father that day. Is the covenant speaking the gospel truth? Are all of humanity, every one of us, a direct descendant of him on Holy Terra?" Looking at the sister, I had a moment of epiphany. Here was a person whose whole life had been revolving around religion. She could jump out of a flying aircraft without flinching, but a mere doubt on religious teachings gave her pause. The Emperor, the Adepta, the Church, the endless devotions and duties were all her life. I was under no illusion under normal circumstances my statement would have rendered me a heretic. That came with a chilling understanding I could accidentally spark a religious war with some careless words. I found myself extending a hand to place it on her shoulder while tuning up the strength of my passive mind reading. "Do you think that could be true, Zafia?" I probed. The sister slowly raised her head. "I don't know." There was nothing but zealotry inside this woman's mind. It was intense, pure and dangerous if misled. It also revealed that Canonus Diadenar did not disclose my identity to Zafia, as opposed to Wellman's speculation. "Girl, you need to have more faith in your own Canonus." I smiled and decided on my answer. "Zafia, forget about the covenant and its creed. As for your other question, go talk to Canonus Diadenar about this, and mention to her that I think you are ready." By then we had reached the top. Zafia was visibly relieved about the silly creed being debunked and nodded. "Very well, I will speak to the Canonus when the next opportunity arises. Now let us finish today's lesson." They called it the leap of faith for a first-time jumper. With a name like that I could not help but remember a certain assassin from a game doing crazy backflips into a mountain of hay. It took about 5 seconds for one to reach the ground from this height, giving one a 3-second window to activate the jump pack. If any accidents were to happen, I bet the impact would still hurt like hell for a human even with power armor and the safety cushion below. Zafia put on her helmet and simply walked off the ledge. I observed the sister keeping herself steady and firing up her jump pack a second before hitting the ground. She landed outside the cushion zone without a hitch. It was just another Tuesday for the Seraphim Superior. I looked down from the height and felt my pulse rising. A legacy of my past humanity? I suppressed the uneasiness, put on my helmet and felt it seal before taking the leap. As I dropped, my thought acceleration went into effect. Time slowed down as I took in all the details on the way down, the way gravity pulled at me, the winds hitting on my side, how my body cut through the air, the rapid dropping of digits in the altimeter built into my helmet's digital display. I savored every second of it, burning the memories into my mind. Mimicking Zephyr's example, I fired up my jump pack at the last second and landed just beside her. While Wellmanor and Balpragus walked up to us, Zephyr smiled and bowed. "Perfectly done, my lady. I can't believe I am saying this, but you seem ready for an aerial drop. We will be having one such exercise early tomorrow morning. Would you like to participate?" Knowing this to be an experience not to be missed, I nodded. Sign me up. An Inquisitor just gate-crashed into my suite. I had returned from jump pack training and ordered dinner when Thaberus dropped in uninvited. While the Inquisitor was being received by Wellmanor, against all expectations he tried to order dinner. "Is it possible for me to grab a quick meal here?" "Yes?" "Then I will have what the lady is having, thank you." As ever, Thaberus was in a rush, he even hijacked my menu. "Wellmanor, please triple the portion for the Inquisitor. I doubt my serving size will be enough for him." I dropped a reminder and watched as the scholar nodded before scrambling away to order food for our unexpected guest. When I turned my attention back to the Inquisitor, he had taken off his signature hat and sat down across from me. After making himself comfortable, he looked at me and nodded with approval. "The armor looks good on you, makes you look a lot less delicate. That and the color blends perfectly with your hair." I almost laughed out loud. After being surrounded by the stiff sisters all these times, the Inquisitor's casualness was refreshing. Still, there was no way in hell someone like Thaberus would simply drop in just for a meal. "You aren't here for the free dinner, are you?" I teased. Thaberus returned a half smirk before replying. "I am here with two important missions. The first is to update you on the happenings, the second is to take a short break. During my time as an interrogator, one of the most vital skills I mastered was the ability to rest and care for myself, even when my surroundings were literally turning into hell." While that sounded like a cheesy macho quote, it became dark quickly when you considered Thaberus' position and line of work. That and something about his tone gave me the chills. "Tell me, is it that bad out there?" I asked. Thaberus looked at me grimly before nodding his head. "From the way you are preparing for battle, you already know, right?" "Say what?" I froze, not knowing what to say. But then again, in my experience, it usually would be better if I just said nothing on such occasions. As expected, Thaberus paused slightly before continuing. "Not here, but serious troubles across the subsector. There are open rebellions and cultist uprisings in more than a dozen worlds, a few even managed to outright take over. Some heretics were better prepared than others. One moment please, I need some water." As I remained in silent shock over the news, the Inquisitor stood up and walked over to the room behind me. He returned shortly with a jug of ice-cold water and 2 crystal glasses, put the items on the table between us and scanned them with a gadget. Only when the device gave him an all clear did he pour the water before passing one of the glasses to me. "Thanks to your beacon, the Regional Imperial Command was able to coordinate and respond by sending Astra Militarum regiments to counter some of the worst insurgencies. Armies are being mustered and wars are being waged as we speak." Thaberus paused to empty his glass with a few gulps, then he sighed with satisfaction before pouring himself another cup of water. "On other news, your early warning about the sudden surge of psychers amongst the populace has come to pass." "Warning?" I wondered for a split second before recalling during our first one-on-one meeting many days ago, I had shared some lore, unaware it would set the stage for his actions to come. Despite the initial skepticism expressed by many, I pushed through with my authority and quickly reinforced many of the agencies involved in such matters. On top of that, I allocated some emergency resources beforehand. Due to that fortunate decision, Nusquam is now faring comparatively well despite currently experiencing reported cases of psycho emergence exceeding 400% from the norm. Last I heard, many of the more developed worlds are barely holding things under control. Why only the developed worlds? Because only they are making accountable official reports. What about the progress of the eradication of the Chaos cult here? I asked, eager to hear some good news. They had gone underground, literally. Mostly hiding in the foundations of the abandoned hive city near the edge at the capital. As far as we can tell, current investigations showed they have been operating in this world for many decades, probably more than a century at this point. Faberus replied. Massive foundation site of an abandoned hive city. My mind went to work again, digging out the relevant information on it from the library inside my head. Apparently at one point in time Nusquam was slated to start building its first hive city. Unforeseen upheavals led to the cancellation of the world-changing project, though some foundational work had already been excavated. For a time it became a colossal eyesore for the locals, they called it the Dig. That was close to 500 years ago. Since then many new developments have been built on top of the area, but the massive dilapidated superstructure still exists. Sounds like the perfect place for insidious cults or worse to hide and bide their time while scheming. Our kill teams have started to scout and explore the area, but the situation is less than ideal. Conditions on lower levels can get extremely hostile. Due to the size and complexity of the place, we lack the necessary manpower for the task. Calculus has shown that digging out the heretics via brute force would require regiments of specialists. Faberus confessed with a rare display of apprehension. Out there is a shitstorm. Here we have chaos cultists with captured psychers hiding underground doing throne knows what. Listening to his words, I got a dreadful sense of foreboding. This scenario had all the red flags of an impending disaster waiting to happen. No way that a professional cult leader would just hide in some godforsaken hole with his followers as his end game. Sounds like a task more suitable for the Mechonicus troops. Did you try requesting Cryptora for help? I pressed. I plan to do that soon as he finishes his digging. In my experience it is usually unwise to disturb a Magus who is obsessing over a current project, Faberus said sagely. I pondered on the situation, remembered seeing this world going to hell in a vision and felt a sense of chill. I will help, come to me whenever you need my abilities. You have my sword, I said to Faberus in a decisive tone, cheesing a line straight from a fantasy masterpiece movie. Faberus seemed surprised by my pledge. He did a double take at me before responding. Very well, but do you even know how to use a sword in the first place? I scoffed jokingly. After today, I will. For a moment Faberus was about to say something, but eventually he just nodded. My guess was he probably recalled the reports of my gun range performance. I took the chance and asked about another issue that had been on my mind. By the way, can you change the menu for the inmates of the Scholastica Psychana with that authority of yours? For the first time, Faberus looked genuinely stumped. It was after dinner and the sword lesson with Markila was held as scheduled. I had invited Malin to observe, not only to build trust with her, but also as a cause for self-restraint since I had decided not to exert over normal human limits during this session. So it was a double-layered training. While I could overpower any human with raw speed and strength, my aim was to learn how to use a sword properly. Additionally, I also wished to gauge Malin's reaction on how convincing my act of playing a human would be. The time soon rolled around and we trained under the observation of Faberus, Wellmanor, Malin, and Palatine Helenter, one of the senior Palatines. Alessaya was on duty elsewhere. I was given various weapon options and settled on a replica of the nameless sword. It was one of the many used by the Order to train generations of sororitas to wield the relic blade. The lesson went smoothly, just like before. My superhuman attributes allowed for explosive skill learning. Simply by paying attention to Markila's teachings, I quickly went from a total noob to having the stance and swing of a swordmaster. After the basics were locked down, the time came for a mock battle in full power armor and helmet. With me still totally new to sword combat, we started slowly at first. I had little clue on what to do and simply responded to Markila's strikes, forcing a stalemate. Unable to break through my defenses with standard attacks, Markila gradually picked up speed and showed where she truly shone as a warrior. Years of intense training with the aid of power armor had allowed the Sister Superior to swing with what must have been Astarte's levels of speed and precision. I was forced to perform slightly beyond the normal human limits to match her prowess. We clashed, and our blades danced with near-inhuman speed continuously for almost half a minute. Even while swinging my sword, I had enough mental capacity to listen around and catch a chat between the preacher and the scholar. They move so fast. How long has Lady SYRINE been training with a sword? Malin asked with a hushed tone. As far as I know, this is her first lesson, Wellmanor answered. Malin gasped with surprise. Surely you jest, sister? Just as I was distracted by the conversation, Markila suddenly closed in with an unconventional move by grabbing her blade with one hand to swing the hilt of her sword like a hammer. Caught off guard with a sword not suitable for up-close combat and unwilling to go beyond the self-imposed restraint, I was unable to intercept her attack. The hilt struck my helmet, the world looked tilted for a split second, and in the next instance Markila had the edge of her training blade at my neck. The room itself seemed to freeze at the sudden resolution of our mock combat. Markila then slowly removed the blunt weapon from my neck and stepped back. Lessons learned: one should always stay focused, and there was more than one way to use a sword. The Sister Superior was impressive. The notion that I could grind sword combat experience from her got me excited. That was superbly done, I praised wholeheartedly. You have to show me more. Markila bowed. It will be my honor. It was later in the night when the lesson concluded and the spectating crowd soon dispersed, including Thaberus, who would be catching some much-needed sleep. I was about to return to my suite when Wellmanor passed me an envelope. It was a very fancy-looking envelope that came with a wax seal. On its front was a name written with a feminine handwriting, Cometa Ignis. This is? From the mails and parcels we discussed before, this letter was sent by a notable person that I believe deserves a bit of your attention. Everything that reaches you has to pass through triple-layered security checks. Wellmanor explained. Thank you. I took the envelope and gingerly opened it. Inside it contained a letter, made of fancy paper no less and written with the same handwriting. I read it with a glance. Most revered Saint Candidate, blessings and peace be upon you in your hour of reawakening. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Cometa Ignis, known by my overly exaggerated titles such as Songstress of Nusquam and Voice of the Heavens. A voice that, until now, sought only to praise our Lord and to entertain, perhaps to inspire, within the boundaries of my craft. When I heard the news that you quelled the fires of war with a song of such divine potency, I confess, I wept. As one who has devoted my life to music, who has, perhaps vainly, sought to move souls through song, it humbled me beyond words to know that the Emperor himself had granted you a voice powerful enough to halt chaos in its tracks and restore peace to our broken world. Your song has swept through the hearts of millions since that fateful day, and I, among countless others, am deeply indebted for the deliverance you have granted us. Words cannot hope to capture the reverence and wonder I feel, yet I find myself drawn to express, even if humbly, the gratitude that fills me with each thought of your sacrifice. It is a strange notion to think that I, who have labored with notes and lyrics all my life, may have only ever caught echoes of something grander and eternal. I am filled with a profound desire to understand, even a fragment more, of what the Emperor revealed to you in that sacred song. If ever you should permit it, I would be honored beyond measure to be in your presence, to speak of music and faith, of miracles and melodies that transcend our mortal realm. May the Emperor's light guide you to guide us, always. In eternal gratitude, Cometa Ignis. A local celebrity wrote a letter to me. I was being reminded that my actions had affected this world far beyond the citadel walls. A singer, do you like her songs? I asked Wellmanor, who quickly nodded with a hint of sheepishness. From what was passively read from her mind, I realized she was a fangirl of this cometa, which was surprising for a member of the sororitas. Now which fan would not want to interact with their idol? I passed the fancy letter to Wellmanor, who received it with both hands and a face of anticipation. She expressed interest in meeting up with me. While I doubt that will happen anytime soon, let Cometa know her letter reached me. How would you like me to notify her? That is up to you. Have fun, girl. I returned to my suite, took off my armor and did the basic maintenance work before taking a bath. Back in my white robe, I sat down in the living room and turned on my super high-resolution television, searching the programs for anything related to this cometa. It didn't take long for me to score some hits at the music section. She was omnipresent there. A very pretty local diva, but why the blue hair? I went through some of her songs and concerts. Most of them were the Emperor and Imperium praising kind due to local taste. She had quite the voice and obviously put a lot of work into her singing, looks, talent, effort. This lady seemed to have all her overpowered trifactor engines firing overtime. Some of her past concerts were grand spectacles to behold. She was a bona fide superstar of this world. It felt weird. Past life normie me could never hope to get close to a high-profile celebrity, and here one of them was actively reaching out to me. I turned off the television, started thinking about tomorrow when I would be jumping off an aircraft for the first time. Jumping out from an aircraft? I felt a delayed jolt of realization as the weight of what I had signed up for finally hit me. The more I thought about it, the more nervous I became. Resolving to be as prepared as possible, I fired up Simulatio and started doing loops of base jumping and flight simulations inside my mind. I vowed to face the morning with the unshakable resolve of a seasoned Seraphim veteran. It was early in the morning aboard a Valkyrie gunship high in the air. Seraphim trainee Lethine Keel winced from a sudden spike of pain. She instinctively reached for the back of her neck, but the contact of hard ceramics reminded her of the fact that she was completely encased within a power armor. "What's wrong, Leth?" asked her squadmate and best friend Phyrexia, whose voice was digitally distorted over the Vox channel. "Pain around the implant," Lethine replied. "The one for the jump pack interface? Is it bad? Do you want to abort this jump?" asked the squad leader, Sister Axla. Lethine flexed her neck and tested the connection with her jump pack. "Seems fine. I will see a Sister Hospitaller after this. Can't wait to get back to my sword practice." Your obsession with the swords is worrying," Phyrexia teased. "Are you aiming to best Sister Superior Markila in the upcoming Crucible of Sanctified Blades?" Lethine slowly shook her helmeted head. "I am far from her level. She is the aspiration for my swordsmanship, just like Seraphim Superior Zephyr is your aspiration for flying like an angel." Speaking of Seraphim Superior Zephyr, some last-minute commitment had pulled her away, so she won't be leading this jump, Sister Axla chipped in. "That's unusual," another sister commented. "I believe I know the reason," Phyrexia remarked with a hint of mischievousness. Lethine scoffed. "Why are you behaving like a gossiping novitiate? Just share what you know already." "Always so grim, sister." "Very well. Yesterday I saw her tutoring a single individual, probably the Holy Daughter." That remark caused an explosion of responses from the rest of the squad, and the gloomy interior of the gunship got lively. "Are you positive about that, Phyrexia? The Holy Daughter doing jump pack training? How long will it take for her to learn this? It took us weeks to master the fundamentals. Is that even safe? No offense, but I have seen her a few times from a distance. She is borderline scrawny and can use more muscle. Drop zone imminent. Cease the chatter." Sister Axla dropped the order and the Vox went silent. "Be reminded that this is a close formation drill. We will drop and land closely with other squads to simulate simultaneous drop attacks. Anyone caught with amateurish collision mistakes will be handed severe penances. Prayers to him. As one, the squad started murmuring their prayers until the drop indicator light went from red to orange, then finally green. The gunship's rear hatch abruptly dropped, letting in the early morning light with cold howling winds. Go! Axler voxed, and the Seraphim trainees began their disembarkation by jumping off the aircraft. It was quickly Lethine's turn, but just as she stepped onto the ramp, the Valkyrie bounced violently. Clear air turbulence. The pilot's alarmed voice voxed through as Lethine found herself tumbling out of the gunship, unprepared for the jump. As the world spun around her, the battle sister breathed deep and kept her cool, not panicking about a situation she was trained for. Suddenly the pain on the back of her neck returned, with more severe intensity this time. Lethine winced and somehow in the chaos activated her jump pack. It propelled her forward in a random direction. Almost cursing out loud, Lethine quickly cut her acceleration before trying to get a bearing. Leth, behind you. The sister heard her name being voxed in a desperate tone. Alarmed, she looked around, just in time to see a Valkyrie gunship of another squad rapidly heading straight towards her. Thrown, damn it. Lethine cursed and blasted her jump pack again, narrowly avoiding a direct collision with the cockpit. She was so close to the gunship that she could see the pilot's panicked expression. Just as the battle sister thought it had been a close call, a huge wing smashed into her. Lethine felt the crushing impact, then her head hit against something hard, and a sensation too intense to be called pain washed over her. The world spun again, more rapidly this time. Lethine's jump pack was still following her last mental command and left on full blast when she lost consciousness. One of my dreams in my past life had come true. I cut through the air. I was gliding down from high up the sky, savoring every second of my first limited personal true flight. The speedometer displayed in my helmet showed I was going at a breakneck speed while the altimeter steadily ticked down. Like many other geeks of my time, the dream of experiencing personal flight had at one time become an impossible aspiration after a certain man of iron became a dominant force on the silver screen, and never I had imagined it would materialize here. You seem happy, Zafir voxed over as she tailed me from behind. Normally as a trainee I should be the one shadowing the instructor, instead with my safety as the priority we had this reverse arrangement. Yes, this feels fantastic, I replied. We dropped through the sky in controlled glide, while halfway heading towards the designated landing zone we came across a clump of cloud. The Seraphim training manual had dedicated a whole chapter on the specific dos and don'ts on dealing with clouds. Seeing that this looked to be an ideal scenario to experience what was mentioned in the teaching material, I voxed Sophia. See that cloud? I am going to fly through it. Be careful, I will see you on the other side, Zafir voxed back. We split up and I flew straight into the cloud. My surroundings changed rapidly from the dirty purple sky to misty white, then gloomy grey. Visibility dropped to near zero within seconds and the swirling dense fog surrounded me like a living grey sea. The immediate sensation was a sudden drop in temperature, then came the rapid pinging sounds as my armor made contact with a mass amount of airborne water droplets at a speed faster than terminal velocity. In the blink of an eye, dampness had clung to every surface on my armor and condensation beads formed on the visor of my helmet. The experience was less fun than expected, so I fired up my jump pack to speed through the cloud. The jump pack hummed angrily, compensating for the cool drag of moist air until I burst free from the cloud line. Zafir was waiting on the other side. She let me speed past her before following me down. We landed shortly after, and took off our helmets to enjoy the rising sun. My lady, I must confess that you astonish me, Zafir commented. Never have I witnessed anyone learning this fast. I believe you truly have his blessings. Her praise almost made me blush. I have a great teacher, I said. I wish it was that simple, Zafir replied with a light chuckle. I have trained many seraphims, none were close to you in raw talent. Suddenly an urgent vox message came through on both our helmets. Sarah falls. I repeat, Sarah falls. The training manual materialized inside my head, informing me that was the code they used to indicate a free-falling accident, and Zephyr's concerning reaction confirmed this was not a drill. I looked around and was surprised when my superhuman eyesight picked up a scene in the distance. A seraphim was speeding headfirst from the sky on an erratic flight path. She appeared to be unconscious and her jump pack was firing at full throttle. Within the next instant I was sprinting at full speed toward the falling sister, my armor straining as Servos groaned in protest with the sudden demand. The world superficially slowed down for me as thought acceleration took over, and multiple notions surged through my consciousness. The first part of my mind was in awe of my own actions. The past human me would have hesitated. Running towards an accident? Is it because I now have all these powers? Another part of my mind had begun the calculus of possible outcomes. Saving the sister would surely bolster my fledgling reputation as the prophesied savior. Failure, however, could have the opposite effect. Conclusion: this might not be the wisest course of action. The sheer cold logic of it sent a chill through me, but I pushed it down with a simple desire to save a life. Redirecting my mind, I focused on the falling sister and the complications of saving her from the current scenario. A heartbeat later, my mind informed me I faced a myriad of serious challenges. From closing the distance to catching the sister mid-air without breaking her neck, none of it was for the faint-hearted. Refusing to give up, I gritted my teeth and searched desperately for a solution. Time slowed further as my consciousness expanded. Possible ideas went over my mind one after another until somehow I came up with a complete rescue plan. The first part was to close the immense distance and grab her midair. In theory, I could hack the cogitator unit of my jump pack with my ability to bypass the actuator's safety operational perimeters. This should allow a short burst of super burn that would use up all the fuel for a short span of turbo speed. I was also quite sure my jump pack would be trashed in the process, but that was a later problem. Will it work? My inhuman intellect quickly sorted out the complex calculations on the fly and concluded the odds were in my favor. Up there the sister was still speeding down from a dirty purple sky, but at least her flight path had stabilized. It was now or never. Here goes nothing. Proceeding with the plan, I first jumped as high as possible while tuning into the cogitator of my jump pack. Responding to my command, the hardwired system was bypassed and my jump pack flared up with a huge burst of flame, using all the fuel in one go. The explosive force sent me rocketing upwards at great speed on a calculated path, covering a huge distance in a few seconds. After reaching the apex height with my unsustainable short flight, I glided down on a smooth intercepting trajectory towards the unconscious sister, aiming to break her fall without breaking her neck. I held my breath and carefully adjusted my flight path as the distance between us rapidly decreased. Heightened focus with thought acceleration allowed me to slow everything down in my final approach. Just before making contact, I turned myself upside down and successfully caught the sister by hugging her from the front. I got you. As the sister and I embraced in mid-air, the smell of blood and promethium hit my senses. I didn't put on my helmet in the mad dash coming here. A quick scan confirmed the sister was in a bad shape and barely alive. I had no time to celebrate as the next major problem rapidly approached: how to land safely. While I most certainly would survive the landing impact with my transhuman physiology, the same could not be applied to the badly injured sister. I quickly accessed her jump pack control with my ability, intending to use it for our landing. To my horror, I found it was empty of fuel. Of course it was empty, she was blasting it all the way down. Cursing my own stupidity, I accessed and engaged the emergency jettison function, ditching her wings to reduce load and improve our aerodynamics. That done, I turned myself back to the right side up while noting the alarming rate of us losing gliding speed. Half panicking, I activated thought acceleration again and did a brainstorm midair while having a front row view of an impending disaster. A moment later my intuition told me I was out of options. Without any physical leverage, there was only so much one could do even with all the attributes of a superhuman. That said, this was a universe where means beyond physics exist. Facing a rapidly approaching landscape, I combed through the knowledge in my mind and found a silver lining, a psychic spell called Wings of Sanguinius. Utilized by the Blood Angels Space Marines to allow their psykers temporary flight, it left an impression on me upon introduction as a friend abused it to send his librarian dreadnoughts soaring across the battlefield, wreaking untold havoc. I dug deep into the old recesses of my memory to haul up an ancient edition army game book. In my mind's eye I quickly flipped to the spell page, and found the book revealed disappointingly little about how the spell actually worked. It was a game book after all and basically just said you are supposed to sprout wings. Like how? Sister, I hope the Emperor is on your side. I activated Psychana Activa, and whirled with all my mental might to make the spell take effect. Wings, give me wings. Nothing happened, we plunged further. As the land got closer and closer in slow motion, I remembered my summoning of a spectral dove with wings of golden hues. Reacting to my thoughts and heightened emotion, a huge flock of heavenly birds suddenly materialized around me. I was flabbergasted. I need wings. Not birds. The ground got closer still. In this frantic moment I recalled about Sanguinius himself, Primarch of the Blood Angels, the great angel, the mightiest and most noble of all the Emperor's sons. Most importantly, he sported a pair of angel-like wings from his back. I can really use a pair of wings like that now, brother. Time dilation effect over, crashing imminent. The wind howled in my ears as we continued to plummet. I flinched at the coming conclusion. After smashing hard into the ground, I probably would end up fine. The sister, though, would be beyond dead. Some savior I am. At this crucial moment when it seemed to be a total lost cause, my mind was somehow occupied by Sanguinius' brutal final fate. I remembered how he stayed in noble defiance until the end. The very end. For this girl, I too will fight till the end. I resolved to cushion the injured sister as best I could. As the ground raced up to meet us, I jettisoned my own wings to reduce the risks of piercing hazards. As the wings fell away, one of the birds flew over and for the briefest moment my view was completely blocked. Then the weirdest thing happened. The howling winds abruptly stopped, I was struck by an odd sensation and felt an indescribable presence. In the very next moment I found myself in a strange space and could not believe my eyes as right in front of me was a suit of golden armor too large to be worn by even an Astartes. The brilliant armor that appeared out of nowhere gleamed gloriously in the sunlight. In the center of its chest piece was a strikingly large crimson gemstone. While I was being dazzled by the armor's craftsmanship, the most shocking part of it was a huge pair of bird-like wings that could be seen behind it. What in the world? Utterly bewildered, I traced my sight upwards to look at the golden interloper's face. Even with my speed I only managed to catch a majestic jawline with a faint smile before another damned bird completely blocked my view a second time. In the next instant I was facing the ground again, with the winds howling in my ears. The strange moment vanished like a bad glitch in reality. Still in shock, I felt something surge within me as a warm and almost violent sensation bloomed between my shoulder blades, then the winds went silent. My falling had stopped and I was somehow maintaining my flight. I gasped. There was a new sensation on my back, something that wasn't there just a moment ago. They felt like wings. A pair of magnificent wings seemed to have unfurled from my back. I could feel them, vast and powerful. I stretched them wide, embracing the wind as it carried me and the sister. The ground no longer an onrushing blur but a vivid landscape stretching out beneath me. I floated, surrounded by a large flock of ethereal birds, feeling my hair fluttering in the wind. Tentatively I flexed my new wings and instantly I gained altitude. The sensation was alien yet instinctive, they responded like an extra pair of limbs that had always been a part of me. Intending to land quickly, I started gliding downward with the unconscious sister still in my arms. A moment later my feet finally touched solid ground and exhilaration flooded me. The unreal birds did not disperse, instead they stayed and swirled around me in a dazzling display of flight formation, but my mind was too disorganized by the eerie experience to appreciate the sight. Reflecting on my emotions, I realized with a shock the peculiar feeling emanating from the golden-winged figure could only be described as a strange sense of kinship. Sanguineous? But he was dead. Dead for more than 10,000 years. The mere recalling of that unbelievable presence gave me goosebumps. For a while I just stood still and questioned everything about this universe. The sounds of people fast approaching woke me from my stupor. I looked behind and was startled to see the huge pair of wings for the first time. They were angelic-looking and translucent, shimmering with a radiant divine glow. This is psychic manifestation with a packaging of divinity. Instinctively, I knew despite their impressive appearance, these wings shouldn't be able to facilitate my flight with their surface area. Yet they were able to defy the laws of the universe by supporting the weight of two people with power armor. Their non-physical nature was obvious, as they had sprouted right through my armor and the remnants of my wingless jump pack. While I was checking out my non-corporeal wings, people started to reach me. Just like last time, Zafia was the first to arrive, landing close by. I turned to face her. Unlike me, she was wearing her helmet and even carried mine over. Zafia froze upon having a proper look at the scene, and slowly she removed her helmet to reveal an awestruck face. "She needs immediate medical attention," I said to the wide-eyed Seraphim Superior, but she just looked at me in a dream-like trance. I realized belatedly this could go down disastrously. What was I thinking? I just sprouted wings. While they looked every bit divine in origin, there was no denying this was supernatural. Time seemed to stretch as I held my breath, half expecting Zafia to burst into a tirade of accusations of heresy and witchcraft, but she simply remained still. "Sister Zafia?" Being directly addressed finally snapped her out of it. "Ah, my apologies. Help is already on their way, my saint." After saying those words, Zafia reverently knelt down to me. I passed the test. But come on, this is neither the time nor place for another session of Neely-Willy. While relieved beyond measure, for a very brief moment I felt like reprimanding Zafia before noticing her aura had changed. The sister was practically radiating faith and conviction. It was so palpable that I didn't need to read her mind to understand that from this moment onward, with or without the Church's recognition, she had fully embraced my status as a living saint and the embodiment of the Emperor's divine will. By then a full group of Seraphim trainees arrived. The downward thrust of their many jump packs created waves of fluttering grasses in the field. Upon witnessing me with my wings, every single one of them emitted vivid emotions of awe and veneration. Following Zafia's example, upon touching down they all knelt before me. There I was with my angelic wings outstretched, standing in the center of a swirling flock of heavenly birds, princess carrying a battle sister while being surrounded by kneeling sororitas. While I must have looked every bit like a mythical savior, all I felt was numbness and a deep sense of dread. The sister in my arms just went limp, her heart had stopped beating.